السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. And today we're having a little look at this book, this tremendously amazing book من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إلى البخاري دراسة في حركة رواية الحديث ونقده في القرون الثلاثة الأولى, written by Dr Ahmad Snobar and printed by Darul Fath. A beautiful one-volume print with this lovely front cover as well. What is this book all about? So this book speaks about how Hadith reached from Nabi Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam all the way till Imam al-Bukhari, and the critical methodology that was applied to the Hadith throughout these 3 centuries, during which this great corpus of Ahadith reached the great Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala. So let's have a look inside this book. By the way, this book is available for purchase in many bookstores that you can access in the UK. You can access this book from Maktaba Abu Hanifa, which is www.abuhanifabooks. Also, you can access it from Zakaria Books. You can also access it from Al-Muttaqeen, and you can also access it from Ismail Books. Some of these websites may have the book in stock, some of them may not have them in stock, but I'm sure those who do not have it in stock will stock this book, because it is a book that goes out of stock pretty quickly and there is a huge demand for it, and it is an amazing book, as we shall see. Printed in 2021, as you can see, mashallah, plenty of space for you to write your notes, etc., that you may want to write about this book. Now, what is this book all about? So if we actually go to how this book starts off, it begins with how Nabi Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam's ahadith were captured and how they were collected by the Sahaba, and it speaks about their methodology in accepting ahadith and in learning from Nabi Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam. And he also speaks a little bit about the reliability of Sahaba in hadith. So for example, and he does this in a method which is not just quite dogmatic. He does it in a quite critical way, if that makes sense. So he appeals to the rational person, and he tries to show how there is no way in which we can doubt the ahadith or the reliability of a sahabi from a logical perspective. So for example, we have Sahaba narrating ahadith that contradict their own integrity and their own honor at times. For example, we have a hadith where Nabi Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam is saying that a mu'min will enter Jannah, and then Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiyallahu anhu says that even wa in zana wa in sariq, that even if he does even if he commits fornication and he steals, so then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam repeats that, and that happens back and forth 3 times, and then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says ala raghmi anfi Abi Dharr, despite Abu Dharr not liking it. So the fact that Abu Dharr then narrates this hadith, even though there is a little bit of a slight quip from Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the hadith towards Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, a very gentle one by the way, the fact that Abu Dharr still narrates the hadith supports the idea of the reliability of the Sahaba, that they would narrate that which supports their views and that which they may not have fully agreed upon, and as in that which may make them not look in the way that like for example, like what I mentioned about the ala raghmi anfi Abi Dharr. So we have this beautiful collection of stories and incidents which the author uses to kind of prove the reliability of the Sahaba, and how we can كيف نطمئن لعدالة هؤلاء الصحابة من الصحابي المقصود بالبحث. Then he speaks about, and the approach that he takes is a very historical approach. So he applies a lot of historical critical approaches, and in trying to prove how they had an amazing recollection of the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam. Then he speaks, and what I like about this part is he speaks about السلطة النقدية المصاحبة لتطور الرواية. So essentially what he's speaking about there is how the Sahaba were critical in their acceptance of ahadith. So they were not like gullible. What that means is they were not just accepting of anything and everything. They were very intellectual individuals who, you may get the impression that because they were Arabs, they were just essentially just nomads who were just, no, it wasn't like that. They were quite critical in their approach, and they would not accept a narration of Nabi Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam except that they would have conviction that Nabi Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam has said it. And then in that process, he also speaks a little bit about, after that, about how the Sahaba recorded the ahadith and passed it on to the tabi'un. He then speaks about the major cities wherein there was a revival, or you could say they became the major centers of knowledge for the ahadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam. He then speaks about how the ahadith went from the tabi'un to the tabi'ut tabi'in. In this, he speaks a little bit, and to a large degree, a little bit about the critical methodology of the muhaddithun, and this is really, really beneficial. Some of the stories here can actually increase one's iman, I would say, as he speaks a little bit about how the muhaddithun would be very, very critical about the ahadith that they would accept. They were not very gullible. They were not gullible at all. They were very, very critical, and they were very smart in how they applied the methods of accepting a hadith. And you will see that the way in which they accepted a hadith, it's a historian would actually be in awe of them. Then he speaks about how the hadith passed on from the tabi'ut tabi'in to the authors of the famous books of hadith, including then a specific chapter on Imam al-Bukhari, wherein he speaks about Sahih al-Bukhari, and he actually kind of speaks, there's an interesting kind of subtopic here, that he speaks a little bit about how if Bukhari's Sahih had not even reached us, would we have lost any ahadith, and what was the unique feature of Imam al-Bukhari Sahih. So it's a really fantastic, unique, amazing book. One of the unique features of the book is that he says in the introduction that he will always go back to the original source for everything that he quotes within the book. Another unique feature of the book is the fact that when it comes to the fabrications of ahadith, which and you know, when did fabricating of ahadith begin from notorious individuals? The famous understanding is that it began during the time after the death of Uthman radiallahu anhu, and the author does a good job of proving that that's not entirely true, and it was actually a lot later than that. It was actually about 30 years after that, approximately, during the time of the fitna of Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, which was quite unique the way he proves that. Other scholars have also held that opinion. Like I said, beautiful print, beautiful paper that, you know, the color is not kind of easy on the eye, if that makes sense. Really beneficial. Loads of stories about the critical methodology of the muhaddithun, all taken from original sources, by the way. You can see Ibn Hajar, Tahdhib al-Tahdhib, Ibn al-Ja'ad, al-Musnad, Ibn Abi Hatim's al-Jarh wa-Ta'dil, and he has quite detailed footnotes at times. Another unique feature is that he speaks quite a little bit about how he's not too fond of this idea that that we must try to prove that writing of ahadith began so early. Rather, we must try to prove the type of social structure and the type of approach that the Sahaba had towards memory, and how their memories were really, really fantastic, and they had really good memory. And it's better to try to prove that than to try to prove that writing began so early. As in, it's better for the Western historian to kind of appreciate the memory of the Sahaba and Tabi'un and the oral tradition than to please him so much by showing that a written tradition was so early in Islam. We don't need to do that. Like I said, it's really good for you to write your notes. I've done that here as well. And another good, unique thing that you can do if you want to is, if you're working on any book, if you're working on any research, you can, you know, mention which books you want to add these points into, and you can highlight them later on if you want to come back to them, which is something that I like to do as well. Really, absolutely fantastic book. So many rare quotes in this book that you would not find anywhere else. And this is a book that I would highly recommend for every student of hadith, especially those who may be studying the Dars-e-Nizami program, whether you're in the final few years in Mishkat, whatever year that you are in. This will be a really beneficial book for you. I hope you enjoyed this slight review, this video review of the book, and I hope you purchase this book, inshallah ta'ala. It's available for different, obviously, prices, but inshallah ta'ala you are able to purchase this book and benefit and read from the book. And if you do so, then remember me in your du'as as well. Jazakumullahu khaira wa ahsan al-jaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.